Warning, this program is entirely fictional and made by a sole Canadian man. All characters and events in the show, including the host, even those that are based on real people, are entirely fictional. The following program contains mature subject matter. Viewer discretion is advised.
America. The land of opportunity. Fueled by immigration and innovation, with just a touch of authoritarian despotism. Here in these glorious United States, there exists a vast criminal underworld stretching from sea to shining sea. And if you look closely at our utopian American settlements, you may just find the stain of criminal activity in more places than you ever thought possible. Tonight, on Grand Theft Auto Geographies. Blood, business, and brine. Tonight we will look at a district of Liberty City caked in death, conflict, and Americanized cultural landmarks. A district strongly linked to the organized crime of Asian gangsters, which saw its native inhabitants slowly rise out from under the control of others to establish their own comfortable slice of the American dream, only to find that the reality was much tackier, dangerous, and beyond their grasp. A place so influenced by the makeup of its residents that its name became one used for similar neighborhoods all across the United States. Liberty City's Chinatown. Similar to the Italian-dominated St. Mark's district, which borders it at a small intersection to the east, Liberty City's Chinatown is populated by predominantly Chinese immigrants, though the racist American tendency to group all Asians together as Chinese likely means that the district was popular in general among Asian Americans, who found fewer language and cultural barriers when perusing the district's open markets and shops. The district is one of the largest in Liberty City, and is characterized by narrow streets lined with shops and residential units above them, as well as the occasional recreation, such as the basketball court on the district's southern edge. Some historians claim that the Chinatown aesthetic originated here in Liberty City, with its predominantly urban American design for the buildings and exaggerated stereotypical Asian architecture adorning different parts of the neighborhood, despite most of them not actually being of Asian origin. Many of the buildings and shops in Chinatown have their names written in Asian languages, or both English and another language, to accommodate the mostly Asian language-speaking demographic of the district. The district's western edge is bordered by the river and features one of the elevated rail stations servicing Portland, allowing many of the district's residents to work in other parts of the city while commuting back to their homes later. It is also, like much of the district, heavily dominated by commercial businesses on the streets, while the eastern edge is dominated by yet more businesses running along one of its main avenues, including the famous Punk Noodles. Unlike some other districts, Chinatown's streets are a jumbled grid, composed of 4 main avenues, 2 running north to south, and 2 running east to west, with one of the former being the Riverside Avenue running underneath the L train. There are also the shorter avenues surrounding Raffles Fish Factory, which offer additional access to shops and the factory itself. Many other smaller streets branch off of these larger roads, and throughout the district, zoning is nearly uniform, with residents living above the many businesses lining almost every street. Perhaps owing to the fact that the district was considered undesirable by many of the non-Asian residents of Liberty City, the district itself was often grimy, dark, and poorly policed, with the Liberty City Triads often serving as the de facto rulers of the neighborhood through most of its history, following the gang wars that weakened the city's mafia in the late 1990s. When exactly Chinatown was established and became the district that it is today is unclear, but according to our research, the district has changed very little since its inception, continuing to be molded by the people who inhabit it with little influence from the rest of the city, who looked on in disdain. At some point, the criminal organizations in Chinatown would come together to form the Liberty City Triads, and attempt to establish control of the neighborhood's territory, but be overpowered by the growing influence of the many Liberty City Mafia families, most predominantly the Leones.
Stay off Leone tarp, asshole!
By the 1990s, much of the district had fallen under Mafia control, when the Sicilian Mafia arrived in Liberty City to try smoking out the 3 main crime families already running the city. The Triads would receive their first break when the Sicilians helped arm them to fight off their rivals and further hamper Leone business. By 2001, the district was almost completely under the control of the Triads, though the Leones still had some business in the area that the Triads allowed. This wouldn't last long, however, as a war would be stoked by Leone Capo regime Tony Cipriani, with help from their new operator, Claude, who worked to dismantle Triad assets and cause chaos, during which time the district saw some of the most violence in the area's history, with the open murder of Chunky Lee Chung at the market, and eventually the death of several Triad warlords at Claude's hands, ending the war and placing much of Chinatown back under Leone control once again. Though the Leones were now moving drugs and other products through the district freely, the area remained heavily populated, patrolled, and guarded by Triad soldiers and not Mafia wise guys. Today, it is unknown if the Triads maintained control of Chinatown, as following the death of Salvatore Leone, it is presumed his second-in-command, Tony Cipriani, took control of the family, and given Cipriani's own history with the Triads, it seems entirely likely that he pushed for further and continued control over the district and its illicit dealings. As we've mentioned several times now, Chinatown had many, many businesses, perhaps more on average than any other district of Portland. The reasons for this are unknown and we can only speculate, but what is known is that numerous establishments have lined the narrow streets of Chinatown throughout the years, and the vast majority of them have catered either directly to Asian Americans or to tourists looking for a brief and voyeuristic glimpse at a foreign and supposedly exotic culture, almost entirely manufactured by Asian-born but very much American people. Some of the businesses we know of in the district between 1998 and 2001 are Bistro, Authentic Seafood Company, Bank of Liberty, Birthday Suit, Bruns, Chinese Groceries Delicatessen, Chinese Restaurant Noodle House, Clench, Cut, Deli, Deli and Pizza, Delicatessen Minimart, Far East Laundrette, Fresh Seafood Market, Giovanni's Deli, Gourmet Deli, H&W Seafood Company, Hardware and Floor Specialist, Helmut Xiang, Kylie's Hot Sauce Company, Liberty Bagel Deli, Live Lobster Crab and Seafoods, Margot Bistro Cafe, Meilin Construction Company, Mr. Wong's Laundrette, New Hong Huang Inc., New Liberty Fashion, Outdoor Indoor Clothes, Old School Hall, Papa's 12-inch, Pizza, Punk Noodles, Raffles Fish Factory, Roast Peking Duck, Samo's Walk, Scumdark, Sunshine Plumbing Distribution, Thumco Trading Inc., Ting Fu Garden, Video, and Wing Sung. As we said, Chinatown is large and busy, with many restaurants, laundromats, clothing stores, and all manner of shops dotted across its map. If you should ever visit Chinatown yourself, try stopping by the Central Open Market and purchase some authentically American Chinese food, straight from the minds of capitalists to your veins. Okay guys, dropping the kayfabe. Now, Chinatown Liberty City is, for anyone who doesn't already know, based on the Chinatown of Brooklyn, New York, which, while not being the earliest example of the Chinatown archetype, is nonetheless one of the more famous and distinct examples of this uniquely American phenomena. Just like real-world Chinatowns, the district features a pair of vaguely Chinese arches, which are inventions of capitalism to appeal to American consumers, rather than an actual cultural symbol hailing from the Far East. Also, like many real Chinatowns, including Brooklyn's, the streets are mostly narrow and packed with many small businesses, and very few exclusively residential units. Looking at the two one after another, it is very clear where Rockstar drew their inspirations from when building the neighborhood, from the boxier layout of the streets to the signage, and even the area's demographic. The entire district oozes that distinctly American interpretation of Asian cultures, especially in the names of its businesses, which continue that trademark Rockstar brand of lowbrow humor. If you enjoyed this video, consider checking out my other main series, GTA Biographies, where I examine in-depth characters from the GTA universe from an in-universe perspective, in long-format episodes. These videos take quite a lot of work to produce, so if you enjoy my work, please consider dropping a like, leaving a comment, or sharing the video. It helps a lot more than you might think. If you want to contribute to the channel directly and get some extra goodies in the process, consider joining my Patreon, where you can get access to all the music I use in my shows, early access to episodes, and a credit in all future episodes for helping me to keep this channel running. Thanks for watching. I'm Guiness Walker, and I'll see you next time on GTA Geographies.